There's a big business scam that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger call out, but almost everyone else in the business community thoroughly accepts. It's 6 letters that you might have heard of, but you probably never realized why they were so wrong. I was thinking that the best scam would be something that those in the know generally accept, those out of the know don't even know about, and that it's taught in places like universities where it gets this widespread acceptance. You may have heard about EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Here's what Berkshire Hathaway's Charlie Munger had to say about it.
Yeah, I think you would understand any presentation using the word EBITDA if every time you saw that word, you just substituted the phrase bullshit earnings.
I knew he'd do it sooner or later, folks.
And the man,
he made it through the morning, but never all day.
Now, the challenge is EBITDA has become almost a shorthand for cash flow. Whether you're going out and buying a share of a company or you're buying an entire company, you want to go out and buy a business, you will often see this metric used. What is the EBITDA? But they are BS earnings, in part because what Nomad Capitalist talks about. You look at a company like ours, EBITDA really doesn't matter, and it puts us at a disadvantage to companies that purposefully have more expenses. So Nomad Capitalist does not have debt. And so you look at interest and amortization. We don't have debt. Companies that bootstrap generally don't have debt. You see plenty of successful companies where the founders talk about how they just started it, 1 or 2 guys on a shoestring. Maybe they hired overseas, as Nomad Capitalist has, so they could grow faster. They didn't have to be in the business of raising money to go and hire a bunch of expensive people in California. They went where they could afford to hire. They went where they could put more money back into the business, just as we talk about. I never wanted to be in the business of raising money. That's what a lot of entrepreneurs do. They don't really build companies, they raise money. And so obviously debt and selling of equity are different, but the mindset of I need a lot of money to build a good business, to me isn't true. I got my start basically, calling people and saying, hey, I have something to offer you. Would you like to buy it? And therefore, I was able to avoid having debt because I just created cash flow and I had instantly profitable businesses. That's what I've always done my entire life. Let's look at the next letter of EBITDA, the T for taxes. Now, Berkshire Hathaway and Nomad Capitalist are a little bit different in this regard because they're in the United States. And they've talked about in their most recent annual letter from Warren Buffett, they've paid 1/10 of 1% of basically all the US taxes. If you only need 1,000 Berkshire Hathaways to basically fund the entire government. But if you follow Nomad Capitalist advice and you go where you're treated best, if you've got a business and you move that business overseas, you don't have to pay the 20 or 25 or 30% corporate tax, and you don't have to pay the tax when you distribute that money to yourself as well. So the average small business owner can save 35, 40, even 50%. Even if you're an American who has what's called citizenship-based taxation, you can relocate yourself and you can relocate your business, and you can, if not eliminate, greatly reduce the tax you pay in countries that want you to be there. They roll out the red carpet for you, whereas where you are right now probably just takes your money and doesn't even say thank you. And so T, if you're a company like Nomad Capitalist, we do pay payroll tax for many of our employees. We do pay a little bit of corporate tax in the places where work is done. But overall, our headquarters and our general corporate structure is set up where we don't have much of any tax to pay. And so our business is at a disadvantage when you compare EBITDA to a company that's run in the United States. Obviously, some businesses have to be run in the United States, right? If you're mowing people's lawns in Florida, you can't really offshore that. But if you're doing something like running a software company, or you're publishing Amazon books, or you're doing a number of other things, that can be run from anywhere. And so those companies, when you look at EBITDA, they're basically getting 20, 25% boost in different countries, merely because they've chosen not to go where they're treated best. And the last letter in EBITDA is the D, which is depreciation. And I feel like a lot of companies set this up because they're engaged in inorganic behavior where they want depreciation, and there's various reasons that they do that. If you were just running your business in a place where there was zero taxes, you wouldn't really care that much about that. If you needed equipment, you would buy it. You would do things for organic reasons, not to have your EBITDA number changed. And so when I listened to a book recently on private equity, everything this guy's talking about is how to structure things like pay people more, but then they're consultants, so they go above the line versus below the line. Like, everything is so inorganic about how to structure your business, merely for the purposes of like, oh, when private equity takes over your business, they load it up with debt and they hire consultants, not employees, and like, now you don't pay any taxes anymore. But like, that's not necessarily good for the long-term health of the business, right? And so if you're a real entrepreneur who's not focused on flipping businesses, but you want to run a business and your business makes $1 million or $2 million or $10 million a year, EBITDA really doesn't matter, and you should get it out of your head, because you're basically using a metric where it's stopping you from going where you're treating best. Warren Buffett would talk about how you're looking at costs before you even stay at the same place, right? So if you look at some of these metrics, what is depreciation? You're basically, how do I just keep my business in the same place? Many Western businesses are staying in the same place because much of their profit gets taken out in taxes, and they're focused on inorganic stuff. Now, if every year at the end of the tax year, you're out looking for tax deductions, if you're looking at what equipment can I buy to get a tax deal, if you're looking at how can I take out debt to lower my taxes, you're not running your business organically. How many businesses taken over by private equity end up failing under the debt load? I loved Peter Lynch, who ran the big fund at Fidelity, and he said, you need the MVP of the world award if you can bankrupt a company that has no debt. Having no debt, to me, is a great advantage. But people who are concerned about these kind of fictional measures like EBITDA are focused on how can I kind of play within the system to manipulate things, rather than just how do I run a great business. And so I want to run my business organically rather than adjusting for tax deductions and doing different things that I wouldn't do otherwise. And you don't have to do them otherwise, right? If you're running a business that is not physical, you can move your business to any number of tax-free or low-tax countries. Now, if it's a small business, you're probably going to have to move with it. Not necessarily to that country, right? You can move your business to a free zone in the UAE, and then you can live in Greece and pay 100,000 euros in tax. Or you can live in Kuala Lumpur, or you can live in Dublin, Ireland, or you can live in any number of places in Europe, in Latin America, and Asia. All kinds of places offer tax incentives where you can pay anywhere from zero to a fixed amount of money to any number of things, and you can cut your tax rate down, if not to zero, to the single digits. And then you're probably not going to be worrying about EBITDA, other than if you ever want to go and sell your company, you'll be explaining to potential buyers, hey, my company's actually 20% or 25% more valuable than other businesses you're looking at in this country, because I don't have the taxes. I haven't done artificial stuff to my business to make more money. And so if you can convince people of that, the good news is we see more people in the M&A space in places like Dubai, in places like Singapore. Asia is, I think, a little bit tougher for M&A. But there are more, even in Central and Eastern Europe, where there's more of an international mindset, right? You're seeing more M&A activity and more advisories in that area, where they're going to appreciate if you take your business to sell to them, hey, yeah, we get it. You're not, your effective tax rate is 0 or 1%. We get it. We're going to value your company properly. And so for me, if I'm running a business, I want to follow the guy with $100 billion. I have always been focused on profit first in my business. I don't care about all the other metrics. I mean, Warren Buffett would say, some of these guys, they basically should just have, a line for gross sales and then just a slash, and then that's the same as net profit, and put everything else in the footnotes, because that's kind of the manipulation that some of these folks, on Wall Street, for example, are doing, where, we give stock compensation, so that shouldn't count, or, that's depreciation, that's on a separate line, or, who cares about taxes? Taxes are real. Right? And so if you're following this EBITDA model that's propagated by all these folks who are in the financial industry, you're not making the most amount of profit for yourself. Run your business to maximize profit. That means you don't need stuff you don't need because you're getting 39 cents off every dollar because there's a tax deduction. How many people buy stuff they don't need just because, it's a tax deduction? You still wasted the other 61 cents if you didn't need that, or if that advertising didn't work, or whatever that gamble you took wasn't worth it. And certainly every penny you're paying in taxes that you didn't have to pay if the business was somewhere else was a waste. So EBITDA is one of the biggest business scams. I'm going to follow the guys with $100 billion in the bank, and not follow folks who want to sell you on how you should buy into their Wall Street model. Profit comes first for entrepreneurs, and you can maximize that profit by moving your business overseas. It's what Nomad Capitalist helps people do. There's a legal way to do it, and you have to consider, if your business is in the US or Canada or Australia, how do I get it out? It's not just a matter of incorporating somewhere else. Plenty of companies will help you incorporate in the UAE or the BVI or the Cayman Islands, but they're not going to help you figure out how to migrate your business, migrate your employees. What about the two guys who need to stay behind? How do you structure them? How do you move to the new country? Do you want to move to the country where the business is incorporated? Where does the business bank, right? If you set up in the BVI, you're not going to bank in the BVI. So where do you bank? Where do you live? All these things are a little bit different. Nomad Capitalist has over a decade of experience. We know all the people all around the world. We work with lawyers and accountants and all the professionals to help you with all of those points to make sure you can move your company from one place to the next with you going with it. You can save millions of dollars, maybe tens of millions of dollars. Oh, and by the way, if you do decide to sell your business, you can set yourself up to have that be potentially tax-free, at least from the value that it's at now. How would you like to be able to sell your business tax-free? So it's not just income, but it's future sale as well. We help people do that. It's a premium service. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. I don't think anyone offers that, but that's what a successful entrepreneur who wants to maximize profit rather than fictional models would do, in my opinion.